Hi and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad Kuttan. This show is a show that brings you the most important conversations of the day. And nothing that excites me more than a controversy, especially a controversy in the arts field, in the field of artistic endeavor, whether it's in theater, visual arts, or whatever. And we recently had a rather interesting controversy, perhaps painful for the people involved, but lessons to be learned from it. And this was censorship of at the end of the day, even art is not important exhibition at the National Art Gallery of Balai Seni Negara. It involved the work of the artist Ahmad Fuad Osman. And we have him here today together with the guest curator, the person who was charged with curating that show, Shabbir Hussain Mustafa, who's the senior curator at the National Gallery of Singapore. Thank you guys for being here. I said I'm very excited because I think, and I think most of us agree that controversies sometimes generate or open doors for discussions, right? But let's begin with the kind of context, and something that often the media doesn't do. It goes straight into the controversy. You've written a lot about it. You put it on Facebook. You, I don't believe, have written very much about it, Mustafa. So let me ask you, as a curator, artists, arts institutions like the Balai and curators, what kind of negotiations go on, and how can they break down as it has with this particular exhibition?
Well, all exhibitions are essentially constructed, and they're always constructed in conversation between the artist, the curator, and an institution, or whatever the host space is. In this case, it was a public art institution. And so Fuad and I had been in conversation since 2018, in fact, when he was invited to stage a mid-career survey exhibition. And so the process that we followed was quite straightforward. We would meet almost every month and spend 3 to 4 days just talking non-stop. And we began to dig into all aspects of his art. That unfolded since the early 1990s, in fact. And we began to develop an entire schema within which one could not just ascertain what Fuad had been doing, but how his activities could then be translated to the public.
Okay. Fuad, you were on the show some months ago after the Sharjah Biennale where you participated, and I've known you for many decades now, and I remember going to your studio. You, of course, very famously part of the Matahati group, and I went to your studios out in Ampang, isn't it? Yeah. Like that was like 2 decades ago. So you've been in the art scene for a long time. Sometimes people say artists are often powerless against these big arts institutions, public art institutions, as well as the gallery system. In this recent controversy, you come out very strongly. You put out statements on Facebook. What is your thoughts, or what are your thoughts about the agreements that were made, and then suddenly this decision to pull your work, or at least 4 of the works on display?
Well, I think in exhibition making, there's a lot of negotiations going on. In fact, from the making of arts itself, there's a lot of decision making and negotiations already. And then, I think before the exhibition started, this thing had been done, right?
The negotiations,
and we follow everything that needs to be done. Everything is good, and the show open is good. And I think when suddenly this thing happens, I still try to negotiate, try to tell them that this is not something that I anticipated, and I didn't expect to be like this, and I hope that there's other way that they could, try to settle this. But still nothing going on. Then I have no other way out, and I treat this as most of my works also. At one point, I think there are things that became an urge, and there are things it didn't become an urge that this is it's okay. I mean, I jot down in my sketchbook and it just left there, you know, for decades. It's just there. But there are things that it really troubling me, and I have to do something. Then I have to do something. And if you can see, there's a lot of works in the shows also like that. You can feel it, maybe, you know, because it really does. I mean, the energy. And this thing happens like that also.
And so when you came out and made those statements, I mean, you're saying from this deep urge to, it actually opened up a door about how the Balai is run and institutional arrangements. Before we get into that, Mustafa, were you surprised? Were there, in the decisions that were made to censor the 4 pieces of work, did it hark back to something that was in the negotiations? Were there concerns already expressed in the negotiations that suggested that this might come up again?
Well, initially when Fuad and I labored over the artwork lists and essentially put the entire exhibition together, the lists had been presented to the institution for proper vetting process.
Because we understood this, yeah?
Yes,
yeah.
And so there were no indications at that moment in time. So if you ask me whether I was surprised or not, it's hard for me to tell because sometimes, you know, as we're working through exhibitions as well, there are blind spots as well, both for the artist, the curator, and possibly even for the institution. And so the point right now is that this has happened. And here we are trying to have a productive discussion about it.
And of course, what we all know is that after the Deputy Minister of Culture and Tourism intervened and much public outcry, and at least from the professional community of collectors and artists, that decision was rescinded, the artworks were put back. I think there was even an attempt to keep just one off the wall. And we can come back to that one piece in a short moment. We'll take a short break now. Stay tuned to Let's Talk.